Well, good evening, everyone. I'm meteorologist Joe Chaffee. Welcome to my YouTube channel and the Tuesday, June 18th, 2019 version of the Joe Chaffee Weather Show. Hope everybody had a great day. We had a pretty busy afternoon and evening in my neck of the woods with downpours, some thunderstorms. Much of the issues were from heavy rains and flash flooding. We haven't really seen anything regarding severe thunderstorms. There was one severe thunderstorm warning up for parts of Middlesex and Monmouth County, I believe, in New Jersey, and that was really it. And in fact, the severe thunderstorm watch that was up for much of the state of New Jersey has since been taken down. So this was one of those instances. The watch that the Storm Prediction Center put up for late this afternoon, this evening, was very similar to the watch that they put up yesterday, but nothing much happened. There were a few stronger storms yesterday, but it wasn't a big deal. And for today, the storms never really did materialize, and I'm just kind of wondering, the frontal boundary was lying across New Jersey from east to west, and perhaps when all those storms formed along that boundary line and impacted parts of North Jersey, perhaps that helped to stabilize the atmosphere to some degree. Sometimes that tends to happen. Let's see if I can get this to refresh. Hang on one second. No, I can't seem to get it to refresh. So let me just double check here. I had one of my sources that I use show me that the watch, in fact, it has been canceled. It is no longer in effect for New Jersey, Delaware, and northeastern Maryland and southeastern Pennsylvania, even though the graphic here shows that it is. So just bear that in mind. This hasn't really updated. I understand why I can't get it to freshen up. I'm going to try one more time. The flood watches, however, continue over a fairly wide area. This is Mount Holly's website, just to show you that they are done, because if they were still up, they would be front and center on the map, and they're not. So that's what's left of the severe thunderstorm watch. You still got the flood watches that are up from New Jersey and Pennsylvania westward, and that is going to continue through the overnight, and likely going to get extended to some degree for tomorrow. Here's what's the flood watches have been cut down and taken down in Illinois and Missouri, where they were up earlier, but they're still up in the southern half of Indiana, the eastern parts of Kentucky, much of the western part of West Virginia, southern Ohio. Just cutting PA, go east to west and draw a line from, say, just north of Pittsburgh to about Scranton. So pretty much right along Route 80, I guess. So from Route 80 south, you got the flood watches up. And they extend also into Maryland and into parts of Western Virginia in the land of Johnny Quest. And we do have also a peppering of flash flood warnings that are going on at the moment as of 7:46 Eastern Time. Looks like, I don't know if that's usually the color for a tornado watch. And in fact, it is. Okay, just wanted to check. It's just small, so I'm thinking that area was a little bigger and they just shrunk it down. I wasn't paying close attention to that particular area today in Kansas. And we have severe thunderstorm watches up in northwest Texas and into parts of northeastern New Mexico and southeastern Colorado. Otherwise, the weather across the United States is actually relatively tame and relatively quiet, and we like that. Here's what it looks like on the surface this evening. You've got this stalled frontal boundary. It's the same old song, and we've been seeing these waves of low pressure moving along it. We had one move through yesterday. The one from today got to be a bit more robust. You can see that boundary cuts New Jersey right in half. Where that front is probably just a hair to the north of where Route 195 is. The 195 runs east to west and pretty much cuts the north and south in the state in half, almost equal halves. And that frontal boundary is lying very, very close to 195. Temperatures in South Jersey, again, late this afternoon, and even as of 7 o'clock, they were still in the low 80s, while on the other side of that, temperatures were generally in the mid 60s to low 70s. And that frontal boundary snakes all the way back west through Pennsylvania, Ohio, Indiana, and goes back into lower pressures. There's actually a second frontal boundary that's running from the western lakes back through Kansas. And this is the one that the wave that's furthest to the west is the one that we should probably pay the most attention to. That's one that comes here into the east for later Thursday, and that's one that I've been mentioning the last couple of days could be a severe weather producer, and we'll show you what the SPC thinks of that in a second. But I want to get to the satellite loop here. And you see the distinct cloud cover that's over the northeast, that first short wave, that's going out. You've got some scattered, I wouldn't describe them necessarily as scattered, but it's not a large, wholesale, widespread activity that's going on to the west in the Ohio Valley. The problem when you forecast in this type of situation where you've got a frontal boundary like this, you've got a series of short waves, and some of them are weaker than others, and you have a really tough time. Models have a really tough time handling that often enough, because they may focus on one short wave on one run, and then it turns out that no, it's not the lead short wave. It might be the one behind it, or maybe it's the one behind that. But the way it's playing out is that, of course, we got what we got with this first system today. The second one is a bit weaker for tomorrow. Yes, there probably will be some downpours and thunderstorms, but I'm not expecting to see long duration widespread activity like we got today. But back out in the Plains and Rockies, you can see there's rotation here. This is the strongest short wave of the bunch that is coming out of the Rockies and the Western Plains. And this one, I think for Thursday, could wind up being a producer, a widespread producer of severe weather. It would not at all surprise me. This time of year, when you see a low being forecasted to show pressures down in the low 990s, that's a fairly intense system for this time of year. So there's some pretty good dynamics with it, a good tropical inflow up the East Coast. I think one of the things we'll have to see on Thursday in terms of the warm sector, how much of an ocean component to the wind will there be? Is it going to be south? Is it going to be south-southwest? Because all those little things are going to make a difference when it comes to severe weather, the severe weather threat for Thursday. And I think it might be one where we might see a few spin-ups. So I think we should pay close attention to that particular event. Meanwhile, of course, rain has been such a big deal. It continues to be a big deal in the U.S. WPC still showing a fairly robust area of 5-inch plus rainfalls throughout the Ohio Valley and over into the middle Mississippi Valley and back through parts of the central and southern plains. Kind of thins out a little bit as you go closer to the northeast, but still some places getting up to a couple of inches. Certainly we saw that today with some of the rains that we got. This is, by the way, does not include anything that fell today. This is starting at 8 o'clock Eastern time tonight and going to 8 o'clock Eastern time a week from now. And the rainfall does thin out a bit as you head toward the southeast coast, picks up again over Florida on the order of a couple of inches. Also showing some robust amounts up in North Dakota and right along the Canadian border going back to Montana and northern Idaho. The west is very quiet, the southwest very quiet, except for the extreme northwest. And even there, the precip really is nothing to write home about. Now, severe weather-wise tonight, as we take a look at what SPC is up to on the risk areas, and always remember that it's, watch the time here at 7:52 Eastern time, and there's your tornado watch, by the way. So at 7:52 Eastern time, and if you're watching this on a replay, just be cognizant of that fact and make sure you check your local radars and current weather conditions by going to weather.gov. We are seeing the tornado and severe thunderstorm watches with slight to enhanced risk tonight across West Texas into Oklahoma and Kansas. They're still showing that watch up again, I'm going to check this off camera here just to make sure, because usually when the local office puts up the map, yeah, that watch in the east, as I indicated earlier, has been reduced. It just remains in effect into parts of northeastern Virginia and into the southern, over the Delmarva Peninsula. That really is what is left, and maybe just touching into southern Delaware. So that takes care of that severe thunderstorm watch once and for all. Okay, so we'll get rid of this and we'll move on to the next map that we're going to deal with tonight. And hang on one second, folks. So we're going to go to the U.S. radar here. Just a little bit behind the curve tonight. It's been one of those days. So taking a look at what's happening as of 7:54 Eastern Time, you're seeing showers and storms. Finally, it took all afternoon for this area to move out of the eastern part of the United States. Out of New Jersey and over Long Island and southern New England. It's finally doing so, and we are also seeing some showers and storms. Looks like some stronger storms developing there in northeastern Virginia, heading toward the Tidewater and into Chesapeake Bay. And then as we head back through Virginia and into western North Carolina, we are also seeing some downpours and a couple of thunderstorms there in the mix, but I don't think any of those are severe. You see what I'm talking about with respect to the area to the west in the Ohio Valley. You just have the showers and storms there have a bit more of a streaky nature to them. So this short wave that's to the west that's going to come through for late tonight and on Wednesday is just not that well defined. And then going further west, we've got showers and storms developing in eastern Kansas, and that's inside that tornado watch box. And further west from there, a lot of activity here through Colorado and through Wyoming and Nebraska. So this is that whole complex shortwave that is coming out of the Rockies and heading eastward for Thursday. So the stalled frontal boundary has really been problematic here this week. We had this a couple of weeks ago, if you recall, and we're doing it all over again. Meanwhile, as we look down further south into Texas, we're seeing some showers and storms there. In the southeast, we've got some activity going on in Florida, just off the coast and down in southeast Florida. But we're also seeing some hefty shower and thunderstorm activity back through parts of Georgia and into the Florida Panhandle. Guys, you're just going to have to step away for 1 second. Okay, I'll be right back. So don't go away. Sorry about that. Just had to take care of something really quick, TV-wise. Okay, so here are your showers and storms moving eastward, running through the southeastern part of the United States. There's not a whole lot going on along the coast. Most of the activity there is scattered, but we're seeing more numerous showers and storms back in western North Carolina down through Georgia. Some of those are on the strong side and down through the Florida Panhandle. Not too much else happening elsewhere. A little bit of activity around the Great Lakes and also up into parts of Montana. So let's jump over to the upper air and take a look at what's happening. So if you take a look at the upper left and in the upper right, we have two lows, two upper lows, one in southeastern Canada, the other one in southwestern Canada. And there's a flow, a westerly flow from the Pacific Northwest across into the plains and into the northeast. Now, there are short waves embedded in that flow. And notice, by the way, that westerly flow goes all the way down into Florida. So this is a jet stream that is a bit far to the south for this time of year. As we get into tomorrow, it's hard to really see the short wave that is coming through for Wednesday. So that's why we're not really overly impressed with it. But you do see the weakness here, this sort of gentle bowing that you see in the height lines from North Dakota down into Oklahoma. So that is the short wave that is moving east for Thursday. And notice that the upper low in Canada is rotating an arm around, and that is going to amplify that shortwave as it goes by. So I think that this has possibilities here with regards to producing a severe weather outbreak here on Thursday. And meanwhile, you'll notice also that you have the trough, the upper low in southwestern Canada drops down into the northern Rockies and northern plains. You had a very active trough here in the west later in the weekend. While that's happening, of course, you've got a trough amplifying off the east coast. So what does that mean? There's a ridge that's going to amplify in the middle. There's a lot of energy here with these two deep troughs. So there has to be a strong ridge in between to separate the two. And we may just, at least here in the east, we are going to be underneath that ridge for the weekend. So that is good news. At least we may be able to squeeze out a decent weekend for most places in the east. There are going to be some short waves coming out of there, out of the plains, to try to flatten that ridge out as we move into next week. And then we start to see at least the GFS come to the idea that maybe you're going to see two upper highs building here, one off the east coast and one down in the southwest, and perhaps that might be enough to finally lift that jet stream far enough north. If this verifies, and this is not that far into the long range, by the way, if it's correct, if that ridging is correct, this could mean that toward the last days of the month, starting from, say, this is June 25th, so we're talking a week from today, and afterwards, if this is correct, then we're going to see the westerlies finally retreat up into toward the Canadian border and points north, and we could be in for some very warm weather toward the last days of the month of June. Now, whether that verifies or not remains to be seen, but it is interesting that the model is showing this idea here going into the end of June. It's a bit of a departure from what we've seen on and off from some model runs over the last couple of days. So this is something I think we should pay attention to. And the other literal interpretation, we don't know that it's right, but as we move through the first days of July, we do see a northwest flow from New Jersey on up through New England. So that would probably tell you where the edge of, say, 90-degree temperatures might be. And being close enough to that northwest flow also would suggest that it might not be overly humid, at least in my neck of the woods, and certainly not in New England with something like this. But I got to say, at the very least, the idea of a ridge, or at least ridging in the east that seems to take over and kind of hold for a while, if the models are correct, is something that might be quite welcomed, and it may finally give us a well-deserved break from this really wet pattern that we've been in. It seems like we've been in, it's been sort of endless. I think that we had a number of decent days where what rain we did get, we would get at night, so at least that was sort of helpful. But there have been other parts of the east, certainly, where that's not been the case, where the rain has been substantial, and of course we've seen what's been going on back through the Ohio Valley and the central and southern plains. Poor farmers. I saw a story the other day in Illinois about Illinois farmers that have just completely given up on trying to get their crop in and decided to just throw themselves one big party. It's been such a frustrating spring from the standpoint of rainfall. So let's back up. Let's go all the way back to the beginning, even further back. There we go. And let's see where this all takes us today. So I'm going to use, by the way, in case you weren't here over the last couple of nights, the parallel GFS is now the operational GFS. It was replaced back not too many days ago. So we are now experiencing the new GFS, upgraded GFS, and we'll see how it handles things. But here's our situation for tomorrow. You can see there isn't too much going on, and suddenly you see some showers and storms popping up during the afternoon. It's not nearly as widespread as what we saw today with regards to intensity. Obviously, there could be some heavy downpours in some places with some localized flooding. But it's the last short wave in the mix that's coming out. And there it is on Thursday morning in central Illinois with a low that runs across Ohio, across Pennsylvania, into upstate New York. And this is Thursday evening. And seeing a low like this, tracking this way, and being relatively low pressure-wise for this time of year suggests to me that there could be some decent thunderstorm development. I would also caution, if you look at these models, especially the short-term models, when it comes to thunderstorm development, they don't seem to handle things very well. They don't really get a good grasp of where the precipit's going to be, so just bear that in mind. Meanwhile, look at Friday with that deep trough out in the west. That is snow in Idaho and in southwestern Canada and into parts of Montana by the time we get to early Friday morning. And remember, we got to have a very deep trough there. Meanwhile, in the east on Friday, as that low goes into the Gulf of Maine, it kind of gets stretched out a little bit as the upper trough sharpens. So there could be some residual rain left over late Thursday night, early Friday morning before it finally pulls out. And then the winds are going to blow later Friday night into Saturday morning as the low strengthens to the east, and we've got high pressure building down from north to south. You're seeing on Saturday just some shower and storm activity up in Illinois, Indiana, north and west up into parts of Minnesota. There's a warm front that's pushing northward from there. And now we have of course, the deep trough in the Rockies and Plains in play with a low that develops in the southern plains, and we'll probably see some severe weather here on Sunday in parts of Kansas, Nebraska, into Iowa and Minnesota. In fact, the Storm Prediction Center on their day 6, I believe, has a risk of severe weather in this area already. So, as I always say, when you see it in the long range, it usually means business, and this is by the time we get into Monday. Fortunately for us in the east, if that ridge holds, we should see the weather stay rain-free until maybe Monday evening, some scattered activity. It doesn't look like we're going to see that much in the way of widespread activity next week. So that'll be good news. We'll get a chance to dry out and be dry much of the time, and let's hope that idea of a ridge holds in the longer term. And those of you waiting for real summertime weather or try and get their pool water warm, you might have your chance. Tropical cyclone activity in the Atlantic, not expected not only in the next 48 hours, but over the next 5 days. And if we jump to the Pacific side, still the same. No tropical cyclones expected during the next 5 days. We're 18 days into the month of June and 33 days into the hurricane season in the Eastern Pacific, and we still don't have we still haven't had not only a name system, we haven't even had a tropical depression out here. So it has been exceptionally quiet on the Pacific side. Usually by now we've already put the first storm on the books, and in some years the second or third storm already on the books. I'm kind of surprised because there is a weak El Nino that would favor development in the East Pacific, but I guess the overall upper air pattern is just not helpful with development of tropical systems even on the Pacific side. The Atlantic right now is a lost cause. I won't even look at the satellite. I won't even show you the satellite because it's just, there's wind shear everywhere. Okay, Matt Kelly, tropicaltidbits.com. Very easy to use. If you got questions on what to do, message me and I'll see, or email me, and I'll on the contact on YouTube. I'd be more than happy to help you out. It's actually pretty easy. There is so much on there, and it can be a bit overwhelming. But once you get through it a few times, it's actually very, very easy to navigate. And there's a lot of stuff. If for weather geeks, that is a very, very good place and a good website to use. And thanks to Levi Cowan for being kind enough to let me use it on a daily basis. All right, it's 8:07 Eastern Time. I think I'm gonna call it quits tonight. There's not a whole lot left happening here that we can focus on. So let me just remind everybody, weather in 5 days in 5 minutes, that is in the morning. So I usually get that up on YouTube between 8 and 9 Eastern time. So you can get a quick rundown of what's going on weather-wise as you get your new day started. And of course, we will have our YouTube live stream tomorrow night at roughly, it'll be at 7 o'clock or perhaps a little after that. I had a bit of an odd start time tonight at 7:45, but whenever we have severe weather going on in my neck of the woods, I got to take care of it first. So if I move a live stream, it's usually for that reason. The Joe and Joe Weather Show tonight on my Facebook page, meteorologist Joe Chaffee. That'll be at roughly 9:20 Eastern time, weather permitting. Again, if stuff is keeping us busy, we may not be able to do it. And if we do the show like we did last night, I will upload it to YouTube, and then you could watch it on a replay. So so look for that. Keep your fingers crossed that we're able to do it, and I think that pretty well covers it. We'll keep you updated with website posts, and don't forget, if you haven't done so already, you can download my weather app on Google Play or on the App Store. It's absolutely free. Just search meteorologist Joe Chaffee, or just search Joe Chaffee on Google Play. That works. I don't think it works on the App Store, but just download it. It's absolutely free, and I have an update coming, being pushed to Google and to Apple that'll make it a bit easier to use. So as soon as the update is out, if you have the app, you'll know, because it'll download it to your phone. But as soon as the update is out, I certainly will let everyone know. All right, have a great night, everybody. Thanks for being here. We'll see you tomorrow.